Streaming is on.
Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat at welcome po sa press conference na ito na inorganize ng iDEFEND para po mapag-usapan ang kalalabas lamang na desisyon ng ICC, no, hinggil sa investigasyon na mangyayari sa sitwasyon sa Pilipinas. So may mga naimbitahan po tayong mga kaibigan, mga kasama para tulungan po tayong himayin, no, kung ano nga ba ang naging desisyon na ito at maganda po sigurong magpunta na po tayo kagad doon sa ating kwentuhan ngayong hapon. Kasama po natin dito sa room ay si Attorney Gilbert Andres, si Ma'am Aurora Parong po ng PARA at sino pa ba ang mga kasama natin dito from Balay? Hindi ko po alam yung pangalan ng kasama natin. Siguro po, simulan na po natin kay Attorney Gilbert Andres. Baka po pwede, Attorney Andres, para baka po kasi hindi lahat ay nakasunod dun sa o napakinggan yung pag-anunsyo nung naging desisyon ng appeals, no, chamber, kung ano po ang naging desisyon, yung general po na naging takbo po ng desisyon.
Opo, magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. At,
Can we speak in English? Kasi there
okay.
are other people
Oh,
who
sige.
are...
I'm sorry. Sige po.
Okay. So, good afternoon to everyone. So, first and foremost, we need to understand this is appeals by the Philippines. That's why the decision was on the four grounds for the appeals of the Philippines. And all of the four appeal grounds were dismissed and rejected by the majority of the appeals chamber. We say the majority because there are actually two dissenting opinions. So, to be frank, personally, I think the strongest appeal ground for the Philippines was the first, because it talks about jurisdiction. And essentially, with respect to jurisdiction, if I understand it, what the majority was saying that this is not really the point to determine jurisdiction. So that's really it. So it's a premature ground, the ground on jurisdiction. And then there's also the appeal ground on admissibility. That's ground number 3. Admissibility, this is really the famous ground for the Philippine government, because the Philippine government is saying that we have a working justice system. We are not unwilling or unable, because in fact we're doing investigations. But according to the majority opinion, ground 3 of the Philippine appeal is actually a fact-based. It's a fact-based issue. So the appeals chamber only look at the two step
Streaming is on.
for the ICC. So the first step is, are there actual investigations being done? Because if there are none, there's no need to go to whether or not there's unwillingness or inability. So that's the fact-based issue. So are there investigations? And the appeals chamber actually sustained the findings of the pretrial chamber that there are no investigations that mirrors what is being done before the ICC. So that's it for now.
Thank you so much, Attorney Andres. Can we hear from our other speakers their reaction to the decision of the appeals chamber? Tora Parong.
First of all, the Philippine Coalition for the International Criminal Court and Amnesty International Philippines welcomes the majority decision of the appeals chamber. No, we have been waiting for this decision, and victims of crimes against humanity, or at least the killings in the war on drugs, have been long been waiting for this decision so that the investigation will continue. We feel that this is a very important decision because first, the uh, Office of the Prosecutor can now continue the investigation, collect data, and possibly look into possible charges and possible defendants or accused in the ICC process. And this can lead into arrest warrants, no? And that is very important. With Second, the appeals chamber decision will send a clear message that the ICC is a court that breaks impunity in countries, including the Philippines. It sends a strong message to perpetrators and the architects of heinous crimes that no one is above the law, and perpetrators of serious crimes must not escape accountability, at least through the International Criminal Court. And third, the decision is a signal to the Philippine government officials that the domestic investigations have been woefully inadequate, do not reach the judicial standards for serious crimes of international concern, and shows that the Philippine government has failed to give clear evidence that it is doing criminal investigations and prosecutions. So we think that this decision be a wake up call for the Marcos Jr. government to reassess its position. With regards to the issue about jurisdiction, like what Attorney Gilbert said, it's not an issue at this time because this was not really covered by the pre-trial chamber, which is being appealed, or which the Philippine government wants overturned. The If there will be somebody who will be accused, perhaps that's a time that they can question the jurisdiction of the court. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Maybe we can discuss a bit further some of the details, particularly this question of jurisdiction. And I would like to ask our guests here, what is the implication of that this is a majority decision and that there are in fact two dissenting opinions. The dissenting opinion was discussed at length, no? and particularly on this question of jurisdiction. So what does it mean, Attorney Andres, that this is a majority decision? And what do we expect would be the message of the Marcos government pertaining to, do we expect that it will play up the fact that there was a dissenting opinion on, particularly on the question of jurisdiction, for example?
All right. Actually, if we look at the dissenting opinion, it actually, in essence, adopts the appeal brief, especially on the first point of the first ground of the appeal. Because in the first ground of the appeal of the Philippines, it was arguing that when the Philippine situation was before the ICC, that's actually exercise of jurisdiction. And they were arguing that during that exercise of jurisdiction, the court should also have actual jurisdiction. Meaning to say, the Philippines should have still been a state party. But in fact, the implication of the majority opinion is that the ICC can even exercise its jurisdiction even beyond that 1 year period when the withdrawal already took effect. And you know what, Joseph, this is really a precedent making decision by the majority because, in fact, it means that the Office of the Prosecutor is not pressured actually to do its application for an investigation within that 1 year period. So it can even do that beyond that 1 year period, which actually what happened to the Philippine situation because the Office of the Prosecutor actually made the application on May of 2021, which is actually 2 years after the withdrawal took effect in March 17 of 2019. So this is really an expansion of the powers of the OTP as well as the pretrial chamber. So we actually expanded their powers. It's now beyond that 1 year effectivity date. And I think that's really the point of the two dissenting opinions that it should be the OTP should do the application within that 1 year. And yet the majority did not agree with that.
Yes, Doc Au. Go ahead, please. Thanks, Attorney Andres.
I think it is really about the withdrawal, no, that they're
Mhm.
questioning the jurisdiction. Um, and I think they are using the Burundi decision, wherein the effect of the withdrawal of Burundi has not been in place yet when there was a continue the uh, has not been in place yet when there were questions raised regarding jurisdiction. But I think one thing that we should really look into is that uh, when we speak of the court, we speak we speak of the office of the prosecutor also. So at that time, before the withdrawal of the Philippines from the Rome Statute of the ICC, already the Office of the Prosecution has already started preliminary examination. And I think that is already an act of the court because even if the Office of the Prosecutor is independent from the judicial process, the court includes the office of the prosecutor. I just don't know what exactly is the article that includes it as part of the court. The court is defined as office of the prosecutor, the registry as registry as well as the judiciary. So there is already an act of the court through the office of the prosecutor.
Okay, thanks. Yes, Attorney Andres, you want to add?
Joseph, oh, you had the second question about the Marcos Jr. administration. In fact, the Marcos Jr. administration has always been trumpeting to Europe, to the US, that it wants to respect human rights. And this is now a golden opportunity for the Marcos Jr. administration to show that it respects human rights by indeed cooperating with the ICC. So this is now the golden opportunity for Ferdinand Marcos Jr. If you really respect human rights, then let the investigation of the ICC prosecutors here in the Philippines be implemented, and also implement any arrest warrants that will be issued by the ICC in the future, and then really cooperate with the ICC judicial system.
Yeah, thanks for that. But Attorney Andres, prior to the decision, DOJ Secretary Remulla was saying that, of course, still, the position of refusing to cooperate and saying that there's politics within the ICC. Don't you think that this majority decision and the dissenting opinion would be played up? I think that was the point I was trying to make a while ago. To be that the government will now play this up as reflective of the kind of sort of but the politics within the ICC. Has there been, so what is the weight? Maybe that's the question. What is the weight of the dissenting opinion in this case? And of course, for us, we are saying that the most important result is that the investigation will continue, right? But I'm just trying to anticipate how the government will spin this. So your
Well,
thoughts on that?
as of to how the administration will spin it, well, it's really up to the administration. But let's just remind ourselves that the ICC is not a political body; it's a judicial body. That's why, in fact, the fact that there's a dissenting opinion shows that it's really is a judicial body, because there's really a real arguments on the text of the Rome Statute as well as the facts of the Philippine situation. So the government should not really play the political trump, because in fact the fact that there's a dissenting opinion shows that this is a judicial process and that there are really legal arguments. But fortunately for us, the appeals chamber majority saw the arguments of the office of the prosecutor as well as of the victims.
Yeah, that's a very important point, Attorney Andres. Thanks for that. Let's bring into the discussion also Weng of CLRDC. Weng,
Hello.
yeah,
Hello, good afternoon.
your reaction, your thoughts on the decision, please.
Okay, of course, una sa lahat, masaya. In fact, when I was listening and was hearing the judgment, I was crying talaga on the result. But after hearing the dissenting opinion, biglang naisip ko na baka dito magkaroon ng challenges kasi it could bring more, the dissenting opinion could bring more challenges down the line because if the prosecutor names a suspect, that person can challenge the jurisdiction based on yun yung mga answers dun sa question namin before during the meeting with our mga friends dun sa international community. So, yun lang. Pero, of course, yung una-una masaya, sabi nga natin, justice cannot wait, no? And for the families of victims, who were like, although it was in English and some of our colleagues in the community were like translating to them, no? Kung ano yung nangyayari at napaiyak talaga sila sa tuwa. Ang saya-saya nila nung nalaman nila to. At ang masasabi ko lang siguro, maging ready lang tayo kung ano yung mga pwedeng gawin. Halimbawa, eto nga, merong dissenting opinion na lumabas na pwedeng manganak ng more challenges, no, from the side of the Philippine government. At dapat handa din tayo doon kasi ang tanong pa, with this decision, magtutuloy-tuloy ba yung investigation? If kasi ang base sa ilang provisions din dun sa Rome Statute, yung prosecutor can now ask yung pre-trial chamber to make a finding on jurisdiction before he can continue with the investigation. I think we can ask Attorney Andres to confirm on that sa Article 19.3 yata yan ng wrong statute. But at least for today, it's a win. So masaya, and for the families of victims, tuloy ang laban. Yun lang po.
Thank you. Thanks, Weng. So maybe we move the discussion to, so what are the next steps now, no? After that decision, it's favorable decision, particularly for the victims. Pero in practical terms or in operational terms po, ano pong next steps, no, that will take place, what will happen, and what role or what should movements like iDEFEND para do in this in reaction to or in to push that process forward? Dr. Au?
Thank you, Joseph. Just a correction then, no? This is not only an iDefend press con, but it's also a Philippine Coalition for the ICC press con.
Yeah, sorry po. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Sige, in terms of next steps, we are, of course, we want that the Office of the Prosecutor to continue with the investigation, and it should be faster, so that we can go to the next step rather than just investigation. The next step should be already trying to first continue the investigation, gather more evidence, and interview more witnesses and victims, no? And then we are hoping that the investigation will be faster, so that we can determine possible accused, possible charges, and later issue warrants of arrest, because that is what many of the victims' families are waiting for. Not just the investigation, because the cases of killings have started long ago, and within the at least temporal jurisdiction of the ICC, from our point of view, is that it started in November 2011 and continued until the withdrawal of the Philippines from the ICC, and that is it became effective on March 17, 2019. So at least for these cases, the Office of the Prosecutor should really master all its capacities to be able to gather more information and evidence, and keep them so that it can be used to determine the charges as well as possible defendants. Second, I think that the Assembly of State Parties has to give the necessary resources that the Office of the Prosecutor needs, so that it can effectively do its work, and with the adequate staff to work on it, and adequate resources, so that it can have creative ways of in interviewing witnesses and victims. It also needs to give political support to the International Criminal Court, because in fact here in the Philippines, the top government officials have already demonized the ICC, and second, it has in fact even demonized officials of the ICC. So third, I think that for us, civil society organizations here in the Philippines, we should really have more information work, done so that we explain what the International Criminal Court is, what is the standards that is looking for in the investigations of the Philippine government, and and which is the reason which it finds absent, and that is the reason why it is making all these investigations. So the public should be made aware about the efforts for disinformation and wrong interpretations, so that they can support the continuing work of the International Criminal Court. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc Au. I think that the last point underscoring the need, no, for more public information discussion on the ICC is very important, no. When Attorney Andes, do you want to add on next steps?
I think just 2 points. Number one, we're always victim based in our approach. So we always look at the welfare of all the victims of the war on drugs. So it's also important to create that community where we can provide strength to the victims, because the reality in the Philippines is that there are really too much pressure on the victims. In fact, victim fatigue is a true phenomenon. In fact, I can say this even for other massacre victims such as the Maguindanao massacre. There was really so much pressure brought to bear upon them. So that's really number one. And we need all the help that we can in order to look at the welfare of victims, families, and communities. Number two, with respect to what's next, in fact, we can refer to Article 54 of the ICC statute. That's actually the duties and powers of the prosecutor. And it's very interesting that, in fact, the prosecutor may seek the cooperation of any state. In fact, that is still an open window. So again, a challenge to the Marcos Jr. administration. If you really respect human rights, you can actually enter into a cooperation agreement with the Office of the Prosecutor. And in fact, the Office of the Prosecutor did this even to a non-state party such as Ukraine. So this is a challenge to the Marcos Jr. administration. Have a cooperation agreement with the Office of the Prosecutor.
Yeah, thanks. Weng?
Yes, oo. Yun nga, no, in addition to what Attorney Andres has said, no, we would like also to reiterate or call for the government, no, to abandon the violent war on drugs and formally cooperate with the ISIS investigation. Uh, because I think it's about time, no, to really make true to his pronouncement before that he will have another approach on this. No, maybe this decision could be take a point for him, no, to really reflect that the war on drugs will not give anything, no, that's will really put the situation, or you push really to the dungeons the families who are really in a very traumatic situation because of what's happening now, because until now it persists, no, it continues, despite the fact uh, that they've committed to investigate the killings during the UPR. No, that's the government commitment, but it's different uh, in from the reality, no, that's happening on the ground. So yon, I think it's about time to reconsider or have a different approach, to this and end this violent war on drugs.
Thanks, Weng. So we are about to close this press conference. Next Monday will be the State of the Nation address of the second SONA of President Marcos. What do you expect? Do we expect that this decision will be mentioned at all in the SONA, or what are we hoping if indeed it will be mentioned? What message should come from the president's mouth in the SONA? in relation to the ICC case?
Well, I'm always hopeful, Joseph, because back in the first SONA, there was even no mention at all of human rights. But I'm really hopeful that the um, Mr. Marcos Jr. will actually not just make a reference to human rights, but reiterate if the government really wants to respect human rights. So I really hope that this will be a major portion of the State of the Nation address next Monday.
Doc Au, any final words also?
Ah, so it's final words na. I'd like to first of all read the
Okay, go ahead, please.
a part only of the PCICC statement because some parts I have already expressed in my earlier comments, no. So I'd like to say we have the Philippine Coalition for the ICC has some calls to the government and other various actors. No, so may I just read a portion of the our statement? Impunity must be broken in the Philippines. Historically, sanctions against top officials for crimes have been scarce in our country, with many escaping the domestic criminal justice system to enjoy their loot or bask without shame despite evidence of wrongdoing, and arrogantly come back to power with impunity, assisted by misinformation and false narratives funded by their ill-gotten wealth. The basic principles and guidelines on the right to a remedy and reparation for victims of gross violations of international human rights law and serious violations of international humanitarian law adopted by the UN General Assembly states the statutes of limitations shall not apply to gross violations of international human rights law and serious violations of the international humanitarian law which constitute crimes under international law. The Philippine Supreme Court has recognized that the Philippine government has an obligation to cooperate with the ICC, and we have a domestic law, RA 9851, that can be used to prosecute crimes against humanity and other crimes of serious international concern. In the interest of justice, these are our calls. We call on the Philippine government to step up its criminal investigations on all the willful killings in the war on drugs and bring to the courts the direct perpetrators and their superiors using the laws of the country, including Republic Act 9851. The pillar of the Philippine judicial system, especially the law enforcement agencies, including the police, PDEA, and the NBI, must investigate and provide the information needed to the prosecutors. Self-defense and presumption of regularity of operations in the war on drugs still need to be investigated and brought to the court. The court decides whether there is basis for self-defense and regularity. It is not the police or the NBI or the PDEA to make a decision on this. And therefore, investigations have to be presented to the prosecutors and brought to the courts so that they can make decisions on this. We call on other government officials to add to the voices of a few legislators who support justice and cooperation with the ICC. The ICC is a friend. It does not bring harm to the people and the country. It is not against sovereignty. The ICC complements the Philippine judicial system in efforts for justice. The Philippine government should immediately adopt comprehensive rights-based policies and programs in its efforts to control illegal drugs. It should review the dangerous drugs law and the memorandum circular on Operation Double Barrel, and replace them with rights-based laws and memoranda. And lastly, we call on the international community, including the United Nations, to provide resources and support for justice for crimes of international concern. We have already asked that the ICC should step up and have faster investigation. And we have already called on the Assembly of State Parties to provide the political as well as financial support to the ICC. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc Au. Weng?
Yes, hello. Wait. Um, as a last statement siguro, no, or last message, yun, um, I would just like to read briefly yung sa statement na nilabas ng iDefend. It's very short, no? It says that the ICC Appeals Chamber decision that was announced today exemplified the principles that justice cannot be waived, no? So the ICC has clearly considered the lack of domestic recourse for the victims of the drug war and has clearly recognized the suffering of the grieving families who are still denied justice and reparation in their own country. And contrary to its much touted adherence to human rights, the current government remains unwilling to undertake criminal investigation of those who are responsible in the killings of thousands of victims. And iDEFEND lauds the ICC decision and further commends the international human rights community's unrelenting support to the cause of justice. And of course, we commend the survivors and victims' families whose collective courage pushes the wheels of international justice to turn. In the end, the struggle for justice benefits all of us who pray such a war, the impact of which will be felt for generations, is never imposed on us again. So, yun po. Thank you.
Thank you, Weng. Attorney Andes, do you have any final message po?
Yes, thank you very much, Joseph. I speak on behalf of Center Law as well as the victims' communities and clients that we represent. They're actually overjoyed by this decision. And in fact, this is really an answered prayer because they've really been praying for this decision. And this is not an insult on Philippine sovereignty. In fact, this is a reiteration that we need to respect human rights. We need to respect the rule of law because this is for the protection of the dignity of every human being, especially of the Filipino people. Therefore, I still call that challenge to the Marcos Jr. administration. This is your great privilege and opportunity to actually cooperate with the Office of the Prosecutor and the ICC judicial system. So if we really respect and if we really uphold the life of every Filipino, then cooperate with the Office of the Prosecutor, enter into an agreement with the OTP, and cooperate with the ICC judicial system. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat po. Thank you po sa lahat to all our speakers. A lot of work needs to be done yet still, especially in terms of making the public more aware of the importance of the ICC and the need to push and support this process forward. But in the meantime, I think we can celebrate this win, this victory, as a victory that would push the process forward, and as we move forward, as we seek justice for the victims, no. So on behalf of the Philippine Coalition on the ICC and iDefend, we thank everyone, all our speakers, and all those who followed us on Facebook. And please stay tuned sa iDefend website for additional commentaries, and I hope you can share all the statements that were read here widely, in all social media platforms. Maraming salamat po at good afternoon po sa inyong lahat.
Thank you.